Hi, and welcome to June 2025. I'm Starling Brighter with Mark Matheny. We're going to be talking about the astrology for the upcoming month of June 2025. Hopefully this is streaming also on Facebook. I set it up to do that. I hope that works that way. We'll definitely check. But we are definitely on YouTube as well. So how are you doing, Mark? How did May work out for you? Hopefully okay.
Yeah, I would say I underestimated the energy level of Saturn and Neptune in Aries at the same time.
I see. And
So it has been a nonstop juggernaut of clowns.
yeah,
That's and I don't even. Man, we're so close to Uranus entering Gemini now. I don't. I honestly don't know what that's going to be. That's going to be just like chaotic to a level that I don't know that we're ready for. I know I'm not ready for it.
well,
bring
hopefully
bring back bring back the Pisces stellium.
that's hysterical. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. But yeah, so what was your take on Saturn and Pisces versus Saturn and Neptune in Aries? Because I know that's what we're kind of talking about. What is your take on like what you were thinking compared to what you're actually seeing?
So I have my chart is especially sensitive to this area because my sun's at 29 Pisces and my Saturn is at 2 Aries. So I'm getting I'm going to have Saturn and Neptune on my sun and my Saturn at the same time.
Wow.
It's I thought things were unhinged when Neptune was in Pisces. I think I think we're seeing new levels previously unimagined of just chaos and just disruption and it's a lot for that. It's like everyone's subconscious has been asleep for 14 years and now it's just one day it's going 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then now
Mm-hmm.
with Saturn mixed in there, I really thought I really thought this would be lower energy than it was. I thought Neptune would suppress the Saturn energy a little bit, but it's not. Because they're both in Aries, and neither one of them likes being in Aries. So so they are both. It's like everything that everyone's kept in their subconscious for the last 14 years is all coming out, and it's coming out every second of every day. And there is the off button is broken. The calm down switch is no longer functioning. We you need.
Oh no, you broke up. Maybe you froze. I don't know. And we're back. We had a momentary freeze, but we're back. okay. I think Neptune and Saturn are a little mad at us because we're talking about them. I see you up there. So you were saying that you thought it would calm down with Neptune in Aries, but you're seeing that it's not.
I didn't necessarily think that Neptune in Aries would be calmer, but I thought Neptune would maybe have a little more pull with keeping the Saturn energy at bay a little bit. Because Neptune's stronger than Saturn, just inwardly, not outwardly. I just thought it would calm it down a little bit. And so, like, I'll tell you what, it's right now, like for the next month, if you have things you need to get in order and things to streamline and things like that, this is your time period to do it. This is probably the calmest area, which is terrifying. The calmest area we have for the next 3 or 4 months, anyways.
June, yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It was not as intense as some of the prior, and the ones coming up.
July is
brutal.
July, the first half of July is just going to be.
It looks like you're gonna cry.
This will get fantastic ratings in the alien television universe.
Awesome, that's exciting. I'm ready for the aliens. I have a lot of Aquarian planets. I'm ready. Bring them. Are they cute?
Yeah. They could.
And you're like, oh my God, Starlene.
Stop hitting on the aliens.
Stop flirting with the aliens. Don't do it. That's so funny. Hi, you guys who are watching. Thanks for coming, as always. And I did want to mention to anybody that's watching on the repeat or that's here that doesn't know already, we have a Telegram group. I didn't put the link for some reason in the description, but I'll put it in when we're done. You can go to the Telegram group. We're going to try to carry conversations over there too, so we can talk there. Mark's website is coming along too. It's rabbitholeastrology.net. So check him out there too as well. And this is going to be hopefully a little bit of a reprieve, except for the Mars Uranus thing. Doesn't that happen middle of the month? Mars square Uranus. Yeah, that might not be easy. That seems a little rough. But I mean, outside of that, is there any spectacular things that you think are like a focus of this month, Mark?
I mean, I think so. So we do have. So the middle of this month is where it gets really crazy, because we have the last of the Jupiter Saturn squares that started last year. We have the third one of that and the Mars Uranus square, and they're on the same day. The exact is the same day. And then Mars enters Virgo, and then it's square Neptune. I'm sorry, that's not right. Mars enters Virgo, and then Jupiter is square Neptune. The Jupiter square Neptune should not be that compared to everything else we've got. But the middle of the month that's where all the action starts in June.
Mm-hmm. So
and that first 10 days of July is
brutal.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Well, we'll have an interesting summer to come along. That's for sure. So let's start off talking about Venus in Taurus. I know Venus in Taurus. Venus in Taurus is not a bad energy at all. It feels kind of nice, right? Venus in Taurus, because it's happy there.
Oh, absolutely. I have that. Yeah, no, I have that in my natal chart. I have Venus in Taurus.
So one thing I'll tell you guys as a secret, it's not really a secret, but if you play Bitcoin, a financial astrologer told me, and this is just was looked at, and it was like not always true, but it was often true, that if your Bitcoin goes up during Venus and Taurus, so if you're into that, pay attention. It might be interesting. I have been doing research that is more than just looking at the signs on financial astrology, so I'll eventually be wanting to share that kind of stuff too. But right now, I mean, that was what pretty. I think it was Gianni DePoe who told me that. I was like, that's interesting. And then we looked at the past history, and it was like maybe 80% true. So that was kind of interesting. I don't know if you ever play with the cryptocurrency or not, if that's something you've ever gotten into.
Just look, we have a small amount of Bitcoin. Not nearly as much as we should have, but we kept going back and forth over what to.
Yeah. Well, so maybe looking at it, if it's low and if you want to invest money, maybe, I'm not trying to give financial advice, but like that was something that I thought was interesting. Hopefully, I really do want to be able to come up with a formula that is better for Bitcoin. We're working on like the short-term one, and now we've got a decent one for the short term, but we're looking on one for a longer term forecast, which is harder because everything affects the markets, right? Whether it's a cryptocurrency or something else, everything in the world affects it. So, but yeah, we're working on it. It's been fun to research, that's for sure. So, yeah, Venus and Taurus is nice. I think that'd be a good time to do something lovely for your home, or for you to nurture the physical body, nurture yourself on some level or another. Venus and Taurus. Venus stays in Taurus for how long? When does it move out of Taurus? Do you know?
It's usually about 3 weeks. This one appears to be slightly shorter. So it enters Gemini on July 4th, which is
so just over next month.
Really when the crazy period really starts. And I'm sure Venus and Gemini will love that.
And Venus and Uranus and Gemini will love that as well, because won't they be conjunct? I don't know when Uranus goes into Gemini. I actually shouldn't have said that. I'm not sure what date that is.
About 9 days after that.
So wonderful.
So right around the Neptune and Saturn stationing retrograde at the same degree of the same sign. That's just like the first 2 weeks of July.
What degree is that? Is that what degree? What number? It's Aries. 2? Oh wow. My son has a 3 degree Aries Saturn, and his ascendant is 3 degrees. So my poor baby. He's gonna have a nice Saturn return multiple times. I only had one, so I don't know, but it'll be.
Yeah, my Saturn is 2 Aries, so I'm direct in the path of that.
Yeah. That I didn't even think about that, but yeah, he's 3 Aries, and he's just and his ascendant, so it's a lot. And he's a very Saturn.
So
ascendant person. That makes sense for him. Maybe it'll be easier because of that. I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know when the last time is that two outer planets stationed within 7 or 9 days of each other. It's about 9 days of each other. 2 outer planets stationing at the same degree of the same sign. I don't know that I've ever seen that.
So that's true. I was thinking about what were the 2 planets that were, but I don't think they were both outer planets that they stationed and retrograded at the same time. But they weren't outer planets, I don't think. I'd have to go back in the ephemeris.
Was it earlier this year?
Yeah.
I think it was Mercury and either Neptune or Saturn, because they both stationed, I think, at in Pisces.
Yeah, actually, I think that's what it was. Yep. So that was fun. Okay, so let's move on to our first aspect we're going to talk about. And we're just talking about the major aspects going on in the sky, of course. Mark does do a daily thing that he puts out on Facebook. So follow him on Facebook if you don't already. He writes a little thing about the moon, the moon signs and the void of courses and stuff like that, which is really cool to look at. I love looking at that because it helps me navigate my day. I know if it's a void of course moon, I'm going to expect to be kind of low energy, not necessarily want to focus on something brand new, that kind of thing. So following Mark, and his little things that he does every day, sharing on Facebook is a good thing too. So I just wanted to mention that. So our next thing we're going to talk about is going to be, if I can get it to show up. For some reason, it showed up at the bottom. Okay. Well, I guess that's where it's going to show up. Mercury enters Cancer. Is that right? Yeah, I guess that's right. I put them in the wrong spot, Mark.
Yes, that's fine.
Just whatever. So Mercury enters Cancer. Mercury going into the sign of Cancer is going to have us feeling all the emotions. What are you feeling about Mercury in Cancer?
Yeah, so I think that is some of our reprieve. There is, we have Venus leaving Aries and entering Taurus, and then Mercury leaving Gemini, which it rolls, and entering Cancer. So I think that will at least apply a little bit of breaks to things. Because like for me right now, like every day seems like it lasts like 4 seconds. Like there's
Yeah,
just
I've been noticing that too. It feels like the days are so quick that it's not. I'm like, it's 4 o'clock. I just got up. Like, I mean, I obviously didn't, but I feel like I just got up and started moving. You know what I mean? No, it's not 4 now. I'm just saying, like, that's how I feel at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, what happened to the day? Yeah, that's been.
and it's like it's every day is like that, and it's like when Uranus leaves Taurus and enters Gemini, with like we're gonna have. I'll save that for a minute. Yeah, it's gonna be like days aren't even gonna exist. You're gonna get up. You're gonna run as long and as hard as you can, and then you're gonna drop, and the day's gonna be over. It's like time is going to fly by at an astounding rate, and it's gonna be even more like pronounced because like Saturn in Pisces was this very nebulous, just kind of, you know, I don't know where I am. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is. Because like Saturn is time, and Pisces is, boundlessness. So like it was hard to keep track of time with Saturn and Pisces. But now we've gone from that nebulous, foggy thing to Saturn's going 800 miles an hour now. So it's just burning up asphalt is what's happening there. It's just and like I said, we've still got Uranus and Taurus, which is keeping things at somewhat of a stable speed. But man, when that enters Gemini, and just maybe I should just say that before I forget it. But like now through the end of August, but more specifically, um, like July 7th through the end of August, like that 2 month period, you should be paying very close attention to what's screwing you up, and where your roadblocks are, and what's keeping you from getting things done, because all these planets, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, they're all going to retrograde back this fall for different periods up through early next year,
Mm-hmm.
back into, Saturn and Neptune are going to move back into Pisces, and Uranus is going to move back into Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's going to be the time to, wherever things feel too out of control between July 7th and August 31st, uh, you've got this fall to kind of fix or tweak those things or get rid of those problems or whatever. Because once we get into, I think it's like late February of next year, like once like Saturn and Neptune move into Aries for good, and then Uranus moves back in there, I think shortly after that, it's we're going to be full speed ahead for 2 years after. Right, there's not going to be any slowdown really for 2 years, or um, the next time things are really going to calm and grounded is going to be middle of April 2028, and that's when Saturn enters Taurus, which will finally slow things down. But there's no there's no breaks for. It's like Uranus will enter Gemini for good the end of April next year. So at that point, it's Saturn and Uranus conjunct in Aries for a little while, and then they'll
Mm-hmm.
both be. Uranus will be trine to Pluto, and Saturn and Neptune will be sextile to both Pluto and Uranus. So it's going to be all four outer planets are going to be in high gear that entire time up until um, we get to late April 2028. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have this fall to pay attention, July and August this year, what needs streamlined or what needs removed, or what can you tackle so that you can get everything you have to get done in a day streamlined down. Because it's gonna we get into next spring, it's gonna go fast. It's gonna go really fast.
So, do you agree with Saturn being well, obviously you agree with the Saturn being the material, um, the physical world, right? And then
Yeah.
Neptune being more the idealistic world. So, putting them
Yeah.
together in my brain, I try to do this when I do astrology, is what does make sense together, right? So we're materializing the stuff that cannot be materialized, which is Neptune. So thinking about it from that perspective, I think people struggle with that a lot, because it's like almost trying to understand God or spirit, however you want to define it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what religion or spirituality path, it's all the same in my opinion. But like, trying to do that, it's a struggle for people, and sometimes that can land you into a space of like the difficulty, which I would say would be leaning into the Saturn energy, or into the higher realms of it, which could be something along the lines of, and this has been what I've been noticing just anecdotally, is like, I know karma doesn't work like this, but like instant karma, like it comes around, right? You turn around, you do something and turn around, it's like there, So it's been, and I've been seeing that repeatedly. And I know this is only my anecdotal experience, but at the same time, there's something to that, because I feel like, I'm perceiving just what's around me, and other people are reflecting that what's inside me. So, and that's always true. But I feel like that's more obvious now since the shifting of these two planets and the closer they get together. So I feel like maybe there could be something where we're observing things like differently, in the way of spirit, in the way of ideals, whatever the ideal is for you. I say spirit because, usually our ideals are spiritual in nature in some way or another, but not always. Not everybody's is. So, that's kind of what I think about those two, but maybe I'm wrong with that too. I don't know. It's a curious question, right? Because we've never lived through Neptune and Aries before.
Yeah, right. No, that's another thing to remember is nobody alive right now has lived through Pluto in Aquarius or Neptune in Aries.
Right.
And only just a very few people that are, in their late 80s, early 90s have had were alive last time Uranus was in Gemini.
Yeah.
So
And that, I mean, your life is so much different for that age than.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and this goes to I think a common misunderstanding in astrology that I see, like I think like when I post stuff or talk is like Saturn in Aries is one thing, and Neptune in Aries has its own set of
Things.
correlations and things. But like when there's two planets like in
Right.
the same cohabitating the same sign or the same space, or if you have a bunch of outer planets like we're going to have with Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all making very tight aspects to each other. That's not just, it's like the Richter scale for like how they measure earthquakes. It's not just one bump up. That's like let's say, I'm just making this up on top of my head. Like let's say Saturn and Aries, you would rate a 5, and let's say Neptune and Aries, you would rate a 5. You wouldn't rate that a 10 total. That would be like 100, because you've got two of the outer planets at the same spot at the same time. That's like magnified. That's not just two transits. That's like that's like colossal shift.
Yeah.
That's like
It really.
two
It
times two times two. And then with them aspecting Uranus, and like our this world is gone that we're in now. It's gone by next spring. It's not all going to be bad. I'm sure there's going to be lots of positive things too that come out, but we're not going to recognize anything 9 months from now. It's gonna, and sometimes like as astrologers we can look back at the last time Saturn was in Aries and the last time Neptune was in Aries and everything, but even that does not grasp the magnitude of change as having both of them in that sign conjunct at the same time, at the same degrees. Like that's
do, do you know what was going on in the world when the last time that they were both conjunct? I mean, it had to happen last time Neptune was in Aries because Saturn would go across it a few times because Neptune
well,
hangs out
it wouldn't
for a while.
it wouldn't have to it wouldn't have to because uh, Neptune stays in the sign for 14 years, 12 to
Right.
14. That's only half of a Saturn transit.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even think about that. I was thinking it would, but yeah, right. Totally. You're right. It wouldn't necessarily have to.
So I know, I think I'd seen somebody point out that in like the
I'm gonna look.
BC era, there was a Saturn Neptune conjunction at the beginning of Aries, because it's
And
really got the way that the planets line up and their different speeds and stuff. Like it's rare to have like this Saturn. Even Saturn moves faster than the other outer planets, but
yeah,
even like this Saturn Neptune conjunction at in late Pisces was a rarity. But like to have two outer we had the Uranus Pluto conjunction in Virgo in the mid to late 1960s. We had the Uranus Neptune conjunction in Capricorn in the early to mid 1990s. But it's not really that often where you get two outer planets in the same sign.
Mm-hmm. So Saturn and Neptune were conjunct in, is that 1969? Yeah,
No.
1969. But they were in Capricorn. They were not.
What? 1969.
Is that 69 or 89? I'm so blind. I'm gonna put my glasses on because I can't
It's
tell.
that's probably 1989.
Yeah, it is 89. I'm blind. So I was just going
I'm
back
going.
to see when I could find when Saturn and Neptune were conjunct the last time. So yeah, that was 89. They did like a couple. Then the 53. But in the 50s, they were in Libra, 22 Libra looked like that. That was the, you know, and then 1917, they were conjunct in Leo, 4 degrees Leo. So we're going back. And then 1882, they were conjunct in Taurus, 16 Taurus. So 1846 was the next time, and it was Aquarius. So they skipped over Aries that time. So in the 1800s, you see that? So they went from Taurus and then went right to Aquarius. So
Right.
18.
Well, and two, just from you looking at that, if you look at that, the Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, those are the three of the fixed signs.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last couple we had, which this one's in Aries, the last one was in Capricorn. And you
Mm-hmm.
said the one before that was Libra. So those are the cardinal signs,
Yep.
except for the next one I would guess would be Cancer or close to it.
I can tell you in a second. I'm going to look because I'm curious now. So the next one, well, it will be next year. So like the next one, that would be February 20th next year. The next one's 2061, and that is going to be in Gemini, actually, 20 degrees of Gemini. So
Okay.
yeah,
So
we'll be pretty old then.
a little bit there.
That's okay. Yeah. But I mean, it is curious, you know, like you said, the speed of the planets, they're all moving at different speeds, and Neptune moves really slow compared to Saturn. So it takes a long time to go through a sign, about 14 years, where Saturn takes about 2.5 years to go through the sign. So it just depends. But yeah, it is interesting, and the best predictor of the future is the past. So, you know, thinking of it from that perspective. But yeah, zero Aries, I'd have to do a little more research to figure out when they were last at zero Aries, if ever, conjunct, because it went all the way back to 1700s and they weren't even Aries at all. So that's interesting. Wow. So yeah, okay. So Jupiter enters Cancer June 9th. So that's actually, is that a beneficial thing, do you think, or what?
So,
What's your value on that?
yeah. So Jupiter stays in a sign for about a year. So I think Jupiter kind of relates to pop culture. Like if you go back and look at what movies and music and things like that, or even like which the mascots of sports teams that win championships in those years, a lot of times you'll see uh, like the most popular movies and music have to do with Jupiter, like whatever sign Jupiter's in for
I've
that
never
year.
paid attention to that before. That's so interesting.
Yeah, and that's worked a lot of times with like sports teams too, because they like their mascots, like whatever zodiac sign rules those mascots or animals or people, whatever the different teams mascots are. You'll a lot of times you'll see at least a couple of those teams like do much better than expected. Um,
Interesting. I
so,
never even thought about that. I'm not a sports person, so you know.
but even if you go back and look through like music awards and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and you know what whatever the motion picture awards or I can't even think what they're called now.
So
But
the
even
last,
go back and look through that stuff. A lot of times you'll see some. Uh,
You'll see some things go on. So the last time Jupiter was in the beginning of Cancer, it looks to be that it was 2013. I think you froze again, Mark. Not that you can do something about that.
okay.
And we're back.
Okay.
That was a fun break. Surprise! Oh, we're back. It's funny. So I was looking, the last time Jupiter was in the sign of Cancer was 2013. So I'm wondering what things are related to, like you said, Jupiter and Cancer. What like things of a watery nature?
So I would say Jupiter and Cancer would be things related to love, family, home life, probably more traditional values, um,
Interesting.
food, and two, the other fun thing to look at too is you have to remember too that like Jupiter doesn't uh, change signs like at the beginning of the year. It's in the middle of the year. So if there's awards given out at the end of this year, you'll probably see some Jupiter and Cancer stuff, some Jupiter and Gemini stuff. Because
Oh, that's smart. Yeah, I see
the,
what you're saying.
the the breaking point is kind of in the middle of the year, so you might get some bleed through of both.
So Jupiter and Gemini stuff would be things of intellectual nature. Is that what I'm guessing? Like
Um,
thinking of like the using the mind in some way or another.
yeah, could be a thing like strategy. I think is a Gemini thing. That's because a lot of the like all-time great quarterbacks in football history have been Geminis because they have to kind of know what every player's doing and look at what the defense is doing and pick at different receivers and stuff like that. So they have to kind of be seeing the whole. And also, too, a lot of the great military generals in history have been Geminis. So they have
Mm,
to formulate, troop movements and, supplies
strategize.
coming in and out and how to cut people off at the pass and all
Hmm.
that other. So it's people having to see a lot of different things and make quick decisions based on the different smatterings of information that they get.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense. That's
so
interesting. So it'll be interesting to see, and people with Jupiter placements might planets in Jupiter might have them more expansive too. That's for sure. Whatever those planets are, that could be good or bad depending on the planet. Yeah, and
right. So
digital uploads was being cute in the chat and said that's probably the last time there was a good movie made in 2013. Maybe they'll make some good movies when Jupiter is in Cancer coming up. It's kind of funny.
so um, I'm just kind of looking. I just pulled up the movies released in 2013,
Hmm.
and just some of them are. So the number two movie of 2013 was The Hunger Games: Catching Fire. So the Hunger Games, like cancer rules the stomach.
Oh gosh.
so, so you have. Um, let's see what else would we have. There's another one I saw here that popped up that was, um, and actually, The Hunger Games was the #1 movie, just looking at the money it took in just in 2013. Um, so
Hmm.
I'm
Wow.
gonna look at
And it
real
was
quick.
2001 was the last time, the time before 2013. So it was July of 2001. That's interesting given
Uh,
what happened in 2001.
yeah. So yeah, yeah, absolutely. That definitely brought forth a feeling of you know, uh, gosh, I can't think of the word. Patriotism and love for your
Yeah,
country. Love,
community, yes, yeah, like,
yeah,
oh no, well, that's the thing with humans are funny creatures, right? We are all like this. I think this is part of our wiring, but we can be fiercely independent, but like put your community in some kind of stress and people flock to help. When you see that when you see like natural disasters or something, people come to want to help and to you know do that, and they could be at war, but like let a natural disaster take place and people come to try to help. It's like, why can't we just always be that way? I don't know, maybe that's my Aquarian utopia though.
right,
Speaking. But
right.
it's true,
Well,
so
one
like
of
that, I think that 2001 did that for sure for us.
yeah, one of the other top movies in 2013 was called Mama.
That's a Jupiter
So I'm sure
cancer.
you can do this. Like, yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you
That's
look at
funny. That's really funny.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
you know what? I think I've lost track. Okay, so yeah, so Jupiter in Cancer is going to be more, focused on home life. Cancer rules the mother. I think more like traditional type values and things like that, which is kind of an interesting mix. Uh, with all these other planets moving into more masculine signs, Jupiter moves into the most feminine sign. So hopefully that will bring a little bit of balance
mm,
to clown world. Another interesting thing that I've kind of noticed, say the last 2 months. Um, so usually when the moon enters Cancer, that's usually a very much a homebody, quiet, nurturing kind of sign. But I've noticed the last 2 months, and so Neptune entered uh, Neptune entered Pisces at the very. Let's start that whole sentence over. Neptune entered Aries at the very end of March. Since that time, the days like the first day when the moon enters Cancer, the moon in Cancer used to be forming a trine to Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. So that's a very harmonious, peaceful aspect. I've
mhm.
noticed the last 2 months when the moon has entered Cancer and this month, well, like yesterday, the moon entered Cancer with Saturn and Neptune in Aries now. I've noticed that the results of those days have been dramatically different from what they were previously with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces when the moon was in Cancer. Things have been like really unhinged the first day of moon in Cancer the last 2 months. Because it's kind of, I think it's the blending of the moon and its home sign, the sign of the mother and family life and things like that, and it's been squaring Saturn and Neptune and Aries. So
Mhm.
it seems like everyone I've come into contact with those 2 days, I'll get you the date on the first one. um, has been, so like the first day of this would um, April 3rd was the first day of Moon in Cancer with Neptune in Aries. And then Thursday, May 1st, was the first day of Moon in Cancer with, I've made this way too convoluted, with Saturn and Neptune, or sorry, with Neptune and Aries again. And then yesterday, which was for you playing along at home, um, Wednesday, May 28th, was the first day with Moon in Cancer with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. But I've noticed it's been much more uh, people very touchy, quicker to anger. Like Aries is Aries is not necessarily prone to having patience, and I think that Moon in Cancer, that is part of why Moon in Cancer has um,
a more
why
challenging.
it's a square to Aries because
Yeah.
uh, yes, it's Aries is much more of a go-getter, and Cancer is much more of a sit back and wait kind of thing. And so the moon, since it moves so fast, is definitely um, not up to the same power level as one outer planet, let alone two. So I've noticed it's been all those days, those 3 dates that I gave, have all kind of been days with like heavy, intense emotions
Hmm.
from where I've been at work and things.
Yeah.
Whereas
That's
usually it's a very calm, kind of mild mannered kind of, but not anymore. So we've got a few years of that to look, to forward to. Look forward to probably not the right phrase, but to
look forward
play
is probably
to,
not the right
to
way to say,
playing
but it's
around
actually funny.
to playing
Um,
around, right?
yeah.
So anyways, I think there will be some time this fall where we have Saturn and Neptune back into Cancer, or
Pisces.
back into Pisces with Jupiter in Cancer. So that there should be some good benefit from that, because I think even the people that get bored easily are going to be um, probably exhausted by the time we get to September with
Mm,
the Saturn and Neptune and Aries and Uranus and Gemini at that point. I think I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of people that are going to like it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that will do well with that energy, but uh, and two, it's the energy where we're going is so much in contrast with where we're coming from. The 2020 to 2024 with the Pluto and Capricorn and Saturn and Jupiter and Capricorn, and first part of 2020, and then all the stuff at the end of Pisces. It's just a vastly different energy level where we're going than where we're coming from.
yeah, that's definitely a different speed of things, and especially given that Uranus is also moving signs too, because it's literally all of the outer planets shifting gears.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everything's moving from feminine signs to all the outer planets are moving from feminine signs to masculine signs.
it's so
It's
interesting. It would be interesting to see, what that was, what history shows us, if we've had another time in history where this was, it was like this. It's interesting to see.
Well, I'm sure it would correlate to wars.
Really? Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because masculine signs, I mean, there's is definitely more, you know, warlike than feminine.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
did you look at
Good.
the full? Is it the full moon? Yeah, the full moon. Like, what was going on during the full moon? I'm just pulling it up right now. Like,
So so the full moon will be at 21 Gemini, and the moon's going to be at 21 Sag. So this is I know I've mentioned this probably 100,000 times on various shows we've done together, but the I kind of see people. I think people think that the full moon and the new moon have similar energies, and they don't, not at all. The full moon is the height of energy. That's where things get released and big things happen. And the new moon is almost 100% of the time is very low energy, because it's the full moon is the sun and the moon in opposition. So the moon is reflecting the light from the sun, and that's why it appears full. I'm sure most people know this already. Um, the darker the moon is when the sun and the moon are conjunct. So the sun's energy is kind of hidden; it's blocked out. So that's much more a time for like planning and plotting and putting things in place that you want to see fruition at the full moon. I see a lot of kids.
your dog is
Um,
emphasizing what you're saying.
yeah, he's agreeing with me wholeheartedly. Um,
Wholeheartedly.
um, so the full moon is much higher energy than the new moon. The new moon is almost always very low energy. We even had a couple new moons with like they were conjunct Uranus like a couple years ago and stuff, and even those were low energy. So like
Hmm.
I see people holding and doing events for the new moon, and I'm like, why would you do that? I mean, unless it's like a quiet, peaceful meditation thing, then I get it. But the
Yeah,
new moon are never the new moons are never like big energy.
right. They're more like the restart of something. I mean, and maybe that's it.
Right,
The intention of starting something new.
right. It's like the start of a new cycle. It's
Hmm.
not really a
So, with the full moon, is there anything specific you were seeing with the full moon that was like really like stuck out at you this time, other than where it was in the zodiac? I was looking at the harmonics to see if there was any really strong harmonics. There's actually a Uranus, Saturn, Pluto, Moon with a 9-degree orb in the 25 vibe, and that's a 5 vibration. What do they call the 5 vibration? Quintiles, right? It's a quintile. It's quintile times quintile, so 5 times 5 is 25. So there's this energy of playfulness, but this is Uranus, Saturn, Pluto, and the Moon. Ooh, it seems like there's a lot of intensity,
yeah.
potential intensity during this time,
Yeah,
so
I don't know if I want those guys to be playful together.
I don't know how playful that would be. That could be drawing something not playful out. I don't know, something deep out. So yeah. And then there's a 1-degree orb with Uranus, Saturn, Mercury, and Pluto in the 50 vibration, which is 5 times 5 times 2. So it's 25 times 2 also, which is this playful around like with the community. When you multiply them, you're like adding something to it. So we're multiplying the 5 times 5 times 2. So we're adding something to that playful energy, but it's like not just with yourself, it's with others. And Uranus, Saturn, Mercury, Pluto could be deep investigations of sorts, digging something below the surface. That might be what's fun. I don't know, something like that. But it's going to be, in my opinion, this is only a 1 degree orb from all these planets being conjunct in the 50th vibration. I think it will be strong. It'll be a strong like day. There will be an energetic day in the sense of Uranus, Saturn, Mercury, and Pluto. So I'm expecting there to be some kind of intensity. Maybe, I don't know. Uranus and Pluto seem to be a little bit explosive. So maybe things will come out that weren't known before. I don't know. Something that's uncovered.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of that happening already, and I think that full moon should be square to the nodes.
Oh yeah, I didn't even look at the nodes, but yeah, I was just looking at this this listing of vibrations that I have. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So the sun and moon will be square the north and south node at that time.
Oh yeah, I see that.
So yeah, that does look to be like a good size shift, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot going on that day.
Yeah.
When you pull up the chart for the new moon or the full moon.
Yeah, because that's a few days after. Well, actually, that probably kicks off the really big energy period for.
It does.
And just another thing that I've noticed too, that's a big shift from now. We just had, we came out of that long Mars in Cancer, partially in Leo transit, but I think it was mostly in Cancer that period. And we had Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, and the inner planets were in feminine signs, a good bit of that. Like we had some lineups earlier this year where like Pluto was like the only planet, because the nodes are both in feminine signs also. So we just had like Jupiter and Pluto were the only two planets we had in masculine signs. And now like the moon's in Cancer today, but and Uranus is at the end of Taurus, but really everything else is in a masculine sign. I mean, the sun's in Gemini, Venus is in Aries, Mars is in Leo, Jupiter's in Gemini, Saturn and Neptune are in Aries, Pluto's in Aquarius. So we went from these huge lineups of feminine energy to now we've had these really big lineups of masculine energy. And those are going to that's going to ease off there a little bit early in June when Venus enters Taurus and Mercury and Jupiter enter Cancer. But we've got until then where there's a lot, probably too much masculine energy out there, especially from where we're just coming from.
Yeah, it's a shock to the system when things change too quickly. Yeah. So, okay, moving on to the next star, which is the star of the month. June 15th, we have two things going on. Jupiter square Saturn at 1 degrees Cancer Aries. And then same day, Mars squaring Uranus at 28 degrees Leo Taurus. Tell us about this, Mark.
So, so you've got to throw in a few other things there, because that Jupiter's exactly square to Neptune 3 days after that. So Saturn, while Saturn and Neptune are not going to be exactly conjunct until next year, they're really, 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 really close to being conjunct. when we get to June 15th, right now, even they're only a little bit over 1 degree apart. But when we get to middle of June, so Jupiter is going to be squaring Saturn and Neptune. And then, Mars square Uranus at the end of Leo. So Mars square Uranus is almost always some big explosive event. That's what Mars like. If you wanted to pick a horrible time to take a long car trip, probably around June 15th would probably be that. Mars square Uranus is dangerous to be driving or out in the general public, really. That's just a really unstable, explosive lineup, and it's got, probably certainly two of the craziest high energy planets square to each other, and then Jupiter squared to Saturn and Neptune. Jupiter is kind of like we talked about. It was big with like pop culture and things like that, but it's also kind of Jupiter is like how we, put things out into the universe, how we interact with our environments and stuff is kind of, having that in the sign of Cancer square to Saturn and Neptune, that kind of shows that like that energy is not jiving well to the Saturn Neptune energy, which that's probably the biggest, that's probably the ruler at this point of what's going on, is that Saturn and Neptune so close together in Aries. Because even after they both retrograde back this fall, they don't get more than a few degrees apart for the whole, because while their transit times are different, they're not that different. I think they get like 5 or 6 degrees apart by the end of the year, but they're still.
And the thing of it is that every time, as they're conjunct and traveling very close to each other for so long, every time another planet, like an inner planet, comes by and connects with it, it's connecting with both of them. So it's making like not just a Saturn, whatever other planet it is, aspect is Saturn and Neptune. And it's like, that's what happened, if you guys remember, in 2020 when we had the Pluto Saturn conjunction in January, and then Jupiter came along and Mars came along. They might have been in a different order, but it was like every time we had another planet, it was like another shift to the crazy world that we ended up in 2020. And it was just like, like if you mapped it out and looked at it, because I've done that, it's like unbelievable. But like that happens when you have two outer planets, especially because they do move so slow. They're shifting us energetically, right, to change. That's why they call them generational planets. So they're shifting us generationally to be different, collectively, I guess you could say it that way. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting way to look at it. And I don't know, I think there will be some good things that come from Saturn and Neptune, but I think there will also be some maybe like unhinged things, because it is in Aries. Aries isn't necessarily known to be not impulsive. I think Aries is a pretty impulsive sign, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just like I said, like when Uranus enters that mix in July, like that's going to be really crazy. So like Jupiter is kind of our perception of the world. I'm going to rephrase this one more time because I think I flubbed it up a little bit. So now, like Saturn and Neptune, Saturn is our 3D reality, Neptune is our spiritual reality.
Mm-hmm.
and Jupiter is the big picture planet. So, I mean, I would say there's a really strong chance that we could have like a really big event around June 15th. And especially you have that's kind of when, you can kind of use those full moons for timing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a lot of times when things are likely to pop off.
Mm-hmm.
So having that Jupiter square Saturn and Neptune with that Mars Uranus square, that's a lot of energy to try and um, hope behaves itself and keeps contained. And
Hmm.
two, and two at that point, like right 2 days after that, June 17th, Mars enters Virgo.
Mm.
So I think I so too many thoughts entering brain at the same time.
All at one time.
Yeah. So that's another common problem too with like right now like the Sun and Mercury are both in Gemini, so that's a lot of. In fact, the only exact aspect today in Eastern time zone is the Sun is conjunct Mercury um, in the early degrees of Gemini. So I think so how I look at kind of I guess this relates. I'm just all over the place now. I guess this relates back to the full moon thing with Gemini and Sag. Is to me how the interplay of those is Gemini is the social butterfly. Gemini likes to go around, experience different things, pick up little bits of information, and then Sag is the big picture planet. So Mercury should be feeding information into Sag, which then can kind of figure out how to run the big picture. And
Mm-hmm.
Gemini is more like the butterfly or the foot soldier that goes around and picks up information. Um, so
That's a really good
I
analogy
think
of
that
Gemini, though. Like,
yeah, right it is. And Gemini is um, I'm gonna tone this down a little. Uh, Gemini Gemini may or may not have a reputation for being very chatty. Uh, I'm not saying that that's what I think. I'm just saying there is the possibility that it has that reputation. So the thing is, when like a Gemini inhabitant talks over you when they're trying to, when you'll get the thing where they like ask like 17 questions in a row. It's their curious nature, and they're
mhm.
not they're not re- they're not really trying to ignore you and just continuously talk over you. They just
That's funny.
their their information valve is broken, so they just keep.
Maybe that's my problem. My Saturn is at 29 Gemini.
So it just
Like, I don't know where the breaks are. I'm still looking for them. I mean, it's possible, and who knows? Um, yeah. Mars in Virgo. Did we talk about that? Are you excited about Mars and Virgo with all of your Piscean
I
energy?
I have never ever been excited about Mars
Excited.
entering Virgo. That is, I think that's one of the transits we used to make fun of
Yes,
because
I
it's
do.
just
That's why I
it's
said
so like, and I know there's at least one person in the audience that also used to make fun of it with us.
that. At
Um,
least.
Christina.
Yes.
So people with Mars and Virgo are very high functioning, and they're very good like if you have a big
A big
um,
project.
if you have a big project or a big problem that you need somebody with a fine tooth comb to go through and just smash it down into tiny little pieces and inspect the cracks in your linoleum floor, or to like take every piece of wiring in your house and examine it to make sure that there's no dust on it or something. That would be that would be a good person. If you have something that is so nitpicky
If
that
you
you
want
would not.
someone, no, if you want someone to count the fibers in your microfiber pillow.
Yes, if you wanted someone to verify that your pillows are actually 300 count Egyptian cotton.
Not 299 now. Don't get that
Not
twisted.
not 302, not 297. That it's exactly 300 count Egyptian cotton. Then you should find someone with Mars and Virgo, because they'll be able to do it. They'll be able to do that.
They'll be able to analyze it.
and they'll thrive while doing it.
Oh my gosh, it'll be like the best thing ever.
Right. Can I do this every day?
That's so funny.
Again, if you have any of these people in your life, they're extremely helpful, and they're completely irreplaceable of friends. As friends, my only problem with the Mars in Virgo transit is Virgo is the opposite of Pisces. So while Pisces has its head in the clouds and may not know what's going on Earth at that point, I'm going to get so much hate mail after this show.
We're in trouble. We're going to get canceled all over the place.
They can't cancel all of us.
That's so true.
Yeah, so while Pisces has a problem getting involved in the 3D reality of Earth, Virgo's problem is getting lost in the weeds. They'll be down measuring the stucco in the construction site that you finished 3 months ago, and you've moved on. You're working on a different construction site now, but the Mars in Virgo is still at the previous construction site, trying to count how deep the grooves in the stucco is. Again, if you have a stucco problem,
you need to call this person.
Then you need to call your Mars and Virgo friend.
One of my dearest friends has Mars and Virgo trying to Saturn in Taurus. So like she's 100% like this. I love her dearly, but it's funny because you're like describing how meticulous she could be. It's funny. It makes me laugh because yeah, very helpful if you want someone to, figure something out for you that is time consuming and mentally taxing.
Right. Yeah. More than the average human can handle.
Yes.
You make your Mars and Virgo friend a healthy, gluten-free, completely vegan meal in exchange for them counting the depth of your stucco and your 300-pound Egyptian pillow threads.
Yes. Oh gosh, that's funny. Every sand on the beach, every sand pebble on the beach.
Every sand on the beach.
Every grain.
Your ad said this was the beach with 3 million sands. There's 2 million 999,047 sands,
Oh my
grains
gosh,
of
it's
sand.
so funny. Uh,
Oh shit.
well, I guess the people in the chat are agreeing with us and cracking up at the same time. Well, it's good to know, Christina, that you don't have Mars in Virgo. You have Mars in Aquarius. Okay, mine's in Taurus, so I can relate to just being too relaxed. Taurus in the 12th house at that too. So yeah, that's funny though. Yeah, and Sarah, you have Virgo Mars, or is it Virgo Sun? I love Virgo people. I love them. I love them dearly. I think I love Geminis too, and everybody makes fun of Geminis.
You know what's funny too is I have had a long strand of uh, like close Virgo friends over many years that have been like 29 degrees for like opposite my sun.
Really, that's
They're all born
interesting.
like September 22nd, 23rd, and like they're just super helpful.
Yeah. So you have a Virgo sun, Sarah. Well, you've escaped the Mars Virgo because that's a special
Right.
kind of.
That's
I'm gonna
that's
make my friend
different
laugh.
than
I'm not gonna say who it is, but I'm gonna make my friend watch this video so she can laugh because she will, and she'll probably come back and tell me the other things that she's counted. Uh, that's funny. So you have Saturn, Moon, and North Node in Virgo. You totally get it. Yeah, Christina, and the Aquarius Sun. So the Aquarius Sun doesn't care, right? Too funny. So after the Mars and Virgo fun, so that lasts what, like a month and a half or so? How long is
uh,
Mars? Do you know?
about 2 months, but it'll feel like longer.
It'll feel like 12. You know. No.
So, actually, it's not as bad this time. And
Yeah,
actually,
because
Mars
Mars is
will
kind of going fast.
August 6th. Mars will leave Virgo for Libra.
Did you say the Sun was conjunct Mercury today?
Yes.
So we're at the midpoint of the retrograde cycle then. Whenever the conjunction happens, the superior or inferior, superior because it's direct. So that means that we're halfway point, and the other rest of it will be the other halfway point till it goes into retrograde again. I don't know if you knew that or not. That's the you probably did, Mark, but and the audience, I don't know if you knew that or not. But the conjunction of the Sun and Mercury, when it's both times when it's retrograde, it's the inferior conjunction, and that means that's the halfway cycle too, but it's just shorter, obviously, because that's only like a 3-week cycle, the retrograde. I always kind of think that there's something else additional during, aside from the Mercury retrograde, situation itself when that happens during that time. But I always think the inferior conjunction, which is the one happens during the Mercury retrograde cycle, there's an extra layer of like chaos during that day. I don't know if you've ever noticed that or not, but I one time, oh my God, I have the funniest story to tell you, and I'll tell you just because it's a funny story. You might remember this story, but one time I decided, like a genius, that I was going to lock myself out of the house, and I didn't have my phone with me. And at the time, I had a convertible car. It was an old convertible car. So I'm like, well, dang, I'll just get in my car and I'll go to my mother's house to get the key because she has an extra key 3 miles down the road. I get in my car and I realize I don't have the keys. That's because I locked myself out of the house, right? So then my old convertible used to let me in, but I had to turn it on or like roll the electric window down, which I couldn't do because I didn't have the key, to actually like let myself out, reaching around through the window, right? So I locked myself inside my car. I was like, oh no, it's like 900 degrees in here because it's the middle of the summer. And I'm like, oh no, how do I get out of my car? And I started like panicking. Thankfully, it was a convertible because I could just push it down, and I climbed out the top because I was like, who does that? And then I'm still stuck without like a car. Like, I went to my neighbors. I'm like, can I please use your phone? Like, Who does that? But yeah, that was during a Mercury retrograde, and it was when the sun was conjunct Mercury during that retrograde cycle. It was a nutty situation, but it was the funniest thing because when I looked back at it, I'm like, who on earth does something like this? And I'm like, keep thinking, oh, I'm gonna fix my problem, and then I make a bigger problem for myself and end up locked in a locked car. like how does that happen? It's kind of funny. But
I do remember you told me that.
Yeah, it was a while back, but yeah, it's kind of a funny story. But moving on.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have a small problem and you panic, and then you turn the small problem into a gigantic problem because like you like lose your head immediately and like.
Exactly. I'm like, yeah, I'll just get in my car. Of course, I'm not thinking I don't have the keys to get in my car because I locked them in the house without my phone. So I'm like, unable to even call someone. And then I lock myself in the car and I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? I can't even get out because it's so funny though. The things that happen sometimes make me laugh, and the things that I do to myself.
Are you Florida?
Am I Florida what? Florida man?
Are you Florida woman?
Sometimes.
Are you Florida woman?
Except I don't like do any kind of drugs or anything. I'm just like that naturally. I don't even drink, so it just happens just part of my life.
the gift of being Aquarius.
The gift of having a stellium in Aquarius and 725 planets in Aquarius. Actually, it's only 7, but it's kind of funny because 7 planets in air, because I do have almost the whole entire solar system in air signs, which I don't know. It's a lot though. So let's move on from Mars and Virgo and my crazy anecdotal stories about Mercury retrograde. The next thing we were going to talk about is Jupiter squaring Neptune. This isn't actually as much of a challenge, I think. Jupiter and Neptune's probably looking for some kind of dream or something. I don't know. What are you thinking Jupiter square Neptune is going to be? Trying to conflate the dream?
I mean, everybody's a critic. So we kind of met. So the problem there is not just Jupiter square Neptune. It's that it squares Saturn also, because the Jupiter Saturn square was 3 days, and Saturn and Neptune are so close at that point. So the other is that a. So Mars is going to be at like 1 Virgo at that point. Neptune and Saturn are going to be at 2 Aries. Mm-hmm. So Mars is going to be quincunx to Saturn and Neptune. So that's just kind of so a quincunx is some adjustment needed. So we have the Jupiter square to Saturn and Neptune. Mars has just entered Virgo, and Mars is making a quincunx to Saturn and Neptune. So the problem with we got to jump back to Mars and Virgo again. So the problem, before I went on that long tangent, the problem with Mars and Virgo is that the good thing is it can find and fix any problem. The bad part of it is that it gets stuck into weeds sometimes. Come here, come get your bone. And that it will not be able to figure out which things are still relevant or worth fighting for. It will just be counting the Egyptian cotton threads or the depth of your stucco, and it will not be able to figure out. It will just get lost in the minutia which is why, and I'm going to consider myself an expert in this area. The key to navigating the Pisces Virgo opposition, if you have, especially if you have both of those in your chart, which I do, I've got 2 Virgos and 3 Pisces in my chart. The the group is the way to properly handle it is to not get stuck in, and I'm not saying I handle this properly all the time by any means. The way to handle it properly is to be able to flip back and forth between the two. The Pisces, which is the big picture planet, can figure out what areas need worked on, and then you turn the Virgo energy loose on the correct area that needs worked on. And then once Virgo fixes that problem, it can let the Pisces part know, so that then it can pick out the next thing and move on to the next thing. Because the Pisces has the big picture view, but is very bad with minutia. The Virgo is very good with minutia, but bad with the big picture. So that the key is to be able, I visualize a switch in my head that I need to flip to move back and forth from one, because the Pisces energy without any Virgo will just be off in another solar system, just not even knowing what's going on Earth. And the Virgo energy without the Pisces balance will be in the middle of the jungle in Indonesia, gathering ant farms or something. It's just, it's kind of, it's, I don't even know what that means.
I think it's counting all of the lists that it has of the cicadas.
Counting all of the lists that it has.
I think so. Yes.
I have to say, a Sun Mercury conjunction as Gemini is probably a good day for making lists.
I think you should. I mean, have the cicadas come out or not yet? They're not even around yet.
The cicada thing was a false flag. There was no cicada action last year.
What do they come out every year though? Don't they, or no?
So I think a few come out every year. The years that they say are big cicada years are when these big broods release thousands of, and that was supposed to be last year, and it did not happen. I saw 3 cicadas last year.
Wow.
But they were all making lists, and they had lists of the other cicadas that didn't show up.
They were like, we're going back down there to talk to the cicadas that did not come to the party.
Phil, get out here.
You think they really have names like that, Phil? That seems like a human name to me. Be like Vibey or something. I don't know. Like, because they make that noise. Too funny.
Oh, good.
So the last thing that we have to talk about for, were you going to say something?
Oh yeah. So the nonsensical thing for Mars and Virgo is to unleash that Virgo energy on things that will actually make differences or actually make improvements, because you can make a lot of improvements and stuff with Mars and Virgo. It's just you have to raise your head up once in a while to make sure that you're not just digging into weeds somewhere that's irrelevant, that's not going to improve anything.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, to kind of get yourself where where your energy is going to be put to use, instead of just kind of like meandering in something that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So the last thing to talk about this month is Mercury going into Leo, which will be there for like 3 weeks or so. Mercury and Leo. Mercury is happy in Leo, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it is. I think it's at least reasonably happy there. So this is where the conundrum comes in of Mercury and Venus both ruling two signs. Is the while Mercury and Venus each rule two signs, those two signs don't necessarily get along that well. Because like they're uh, for Venus, Taurus and Libra are ruled by Venus, but like they're Taurus and Venus are quincunx each other, and then Mercury, it's Gemini and Virgo are ruled by Mercury, and those two are square to each other. And so I think the difference there between the Mercury um, Virgo rulership and the Mercury Gemini rulership is that the Mercury Gemini likes to go um, frolic through the woods and visit all the other woodland creatures. I don't even know what I'm talking about now. Visit all the other woodland creatures and the fairies and the trolls, correct? And pick up little bits of information, whereas the Mercury Virgo is more like I'm going to go rearrange all the plants in the forest by their phylum name so that they're in
and their size, because you can't forget that,
and size, so that they're in like
Mark
both numeric and
by the alphabet too as well. We have to get all the orders in order.
Right. So the Mercury and Virgo is actually going to sit one place and start to organize, whereas the Mercury and Gemini is just going to fly all over the place. But Mercury's entering neither of those signs, so why did I bring it up? Nobody knows.
Because
so Mercury's entering Leo. So Mercury enters Leo, which is a fixed sign, but the Gemini half of Mercury goes along well with the Leo. So Mercury in Leo is going to have like grand ideas. It's going to be much more positive and upbeat than Mercury coming out of Cancer. The Mercury in Cancer is more, that's a worrying lineup. Mercury in Cancer would be a worrier, whereas Mercury in Leo is going to be much more positive and enthusiastic.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. Yeah. Interesting. So, to wrap up our month of June, do you have any final last lists to talk about?
I have no final last list to talk about.
You have no final last list.
I don't have it. The list making will never end.
The list, it won't. It won't, because you have Virgo planets.
Not until all the Mercury and Virgos have lined up all the plants in the forest numerically and by size and alphabetically.
Yeah.
And provide a list of that.
Well, this was a fun show. I enjoyed it. I think the Mercury and Sun conjunction was a good day to have a show about the planets. We'll have to remember that. We'll have to tell Mercury, the Sun and Mercury, to do that again.
Yeah.
So so we'll see you on the next one. I guess we'll end it here. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching. And yeah, thanks, Mark, as always, for being my partner in this.
Nope. Thank you for doing all the technical stuff, which is not a Pisces strong point.
That's okay. I'm an Aquarius. I can handle it.
You're one with the computer.
We are one.